What's going on, everybody? This is Eric Swanek from Swan Hockey. What's going on tonight? Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Swan Hockey Live. It's an interactive podcast. If you're new here, welcome. Completely interactive. We want to hear from you. Feel free to ask your questions, join the conversation, put up your comments, help drive the episode. So tonight's episode, we are discussing the 13 junior A leagues in North America. It's a topic that is very important. Obviously, everybody knows the big ones and knows a decent amount about the big ones, but there's so much out there that I truly believe a lot of players and parents aren't educated on, and miss a ton of really, really great opportunities because they're not educated on it. And that's kind of the goal here of this episode, is to help you guys drive through your summer. Obviously everybody's got different camps and tryouts and, everything that they're pursuing. And the idea here is to kind of broaden the horizons, have you guys more knowledgeable, know more. Maybe it opens up different opportunities that you didn't think of before that might be, the best opportunity for you. Or maybe it's, maybe you don't make your first choice opportunity. Like I said, everybody typically, knows the big leagues, and that's, the big, the ones at the top of the totem pole of junior A. And, if they don't make them, a lot of guys, they, unnecessarily take a step down, and it could actually wind up hindering, your progress. So that's kind of the goal today, is to talk about the different junior A leagues out there in North America, kind of what, how to kind of use them, what players might do well in them, just kind of share a little bit of information about them and whatnot. And, so we're going to dive into that here. As we just, give a couple minutes, let people get in here. You guys can, again, I say this, quite often, but, make sure you guys are staying up to date. Swanhockey.com. There's a lot of stuff on there. We're going to be rolling out some new stuff here. Hopefully any day now. We're just kind of putting the finishing touches on it. And I think it's going to be, it's good. It's going to be something that, you guys are really, really going to enjoy. And, once you guys kind of take the time to get to know it, it's going to be, it's going to be really cool. It's going to provide a ton of benefit, a ton of value and everything. And, so, use our community tools. We have the Discord, which I know Discord is new to a lot of people, but, again, just trust me, jump into the Discord. It's, it might be a little confusing at first, but, just, if you need help, just post it in the Discord that you need help. And, it's, again, like Swan Hockey is very, community driven. That's the focus right now. And that's what community is for, is to help each other out, myself included. So if you need help with that, just let me know. But the Discord is going to be very important going forward here. And it's going to provide a lot more, to you guys, and kind of make everything more seamless and, that kind of stuff. We also have the Facebook group for those of you that are, kind of, in the old ways, which is fine. I'm in the group too, obviously. So we have the Facebook group. I really do encourage you guys to give the Discord a try. And then, of course, we have Scout Central, which is our online scouting platform. And, everything ties in for the people in here that have seen the first. We're on episode 13 now. So for the people here that have seen, a good amount of the previous episodes, know that obviously when we bring on a coach onto the show, or a GM or scout or whatever, he's connected to Scout Central, and we're able to put a player tag that's going to connect you guys to that coach. And, just kind of, it's a whole piece of this web here. So again, if you need help with it, just let me know. And, you could even, if you're in the Discord and you need help with Scout Central, you could even go to the Scout Central channel of the Discord and just let everybody know you need help. And, and you should get some help. So, let's dive into this. Guys, let me know where you're coming from. Let me know what part of the country or which country. Let me know what leagues you're pursuing. Let me know where you're playing, where you're coming from. Again, it'll just kind of help me, tailor the show a little bit more to the people that are here, that are, contributing, interacting, watching. So junior A hockey, let's dive into it. So junior A, there's a total of about 13 leagues. And I say about because there's a couple leagues that they consider them, they're self-proclaimed junior A, and it could be very, very much on, a gray area. So I think, for the most part, everybody would agree that there's 13 junior A leagues in North America, including the USHL. So we're going to start with the USHL. And USHL is very self-explanatory. I think everybody kind of, knows that one. It is, as of today, it is the best route in the world for NCAA, for the NCAA bound hockey player. It's, second to none. They do a tremendous job. They get tons of NHL scouting. It really, really takes a special player to play in that league. They have a whole, they have multiple drafts, and they're, working hard to really see guys at a younger age and get guys into the system. It's a tier one league. It's not quite the same as the tier one in Canada, which is the major junior, but it's a tier one league. And it's really, again, I included it in this because, we don't have major junior here in the United States. We consider the USHL junior A, tier one junior A. So I included it in the list of junior A here, but it really is a whole different, a whole different beast, a whole different animal. And with that said, so what players will do well in the USHL? Obviously, it's your top talent. It's your high-end skill guys. So the USHL is going to be, it's a fast, skilled, talented league. Not for everybody. It's a tremendous league, but there are players that might fit better in a different league. Maybe they could play in the USHL, but they might fit better in a different league. And because they play in a different league that's more tailored to their skill set and to their style of play, they may actually go further. They may actually get more benefit from something else. So, is it the best league in the world for the NCAA bound player? Yes. Is it for everybody? No, of course not. Right. There's no one size fits all out there. The best path is the one that works for you. The best league is the one that works for you. The best team is the one that works for you. Say it all the time. And, that gets proven every year, and you're about to see it because it's that time of year. NHL draft, you'll see, it's not about one league. It's not about one level. It's not about one team, right? They take the best players from every avenue that they could find, right? It's not about, path A, path B, C and D. It's the top of A, B, C, and D. So you guys that's proven every year at the NHL draft. So you guys are going to see that. So, again, USHL, best league in the world for the NCAA, bound hockey player right now. Yes. Is it for everybody? No. Again, the players that do well in the USHL, it's typically the, more skilled guys, speed guys. You definitely have to have a set of feet under you in the USHL. If you're a top end player and, your feet is something that you're lacking and you're working hard with a skating coach for that, well, you might be better off in a different league that's, not going to expose the fact that your feet are, half a step behind. So again, the players that do well in the USHL, it's really those guys that are, speed, skill, and, the USHL is typically younger too. So the USHL, they should be limited to, I believe it's 4 20-year-olds. So it's typically, it's definitely a younger league than the North American Hockey League for sure. So again, fast, young, talented, kind of fast tracked, if you will, not, maybe not as fast tracked as major junior, but those are the guys that do well in the USHL. Now, stemming down from the USHL, we're going to dip into tier 2 junior A now. So tier 2 junior A, the best leagues in North America are the BCHL and the North American Hockey League. And I have the BCHL a little higher than the North American Hockey League. I think they get more. I believe there's more, more Division I commitments coming out of that league. There's less teams in the league. They typically do a better job in the NHL draft than the North American Hockey League does. So that's the reason that I have the BCHL, half a notch ahead of the North American Hockey League. But, BCHL, North American Hockey League, those are the two best tier 2 junior A leagues there are. The AJHL, which is the Alberta Junior Hockey League, that was in the conversation up until probably, I don't know what, midway through this year when a handful of their teams quit and went to the BCHL. So that was obviously a big blow. The AJHL I had in that same conversation, but, I think that's kind of yet to be, I guess we'll see how it goes this year with them losing, kind of like the top contributors to their league. So let's start with the BCHL. So the BCHL, Western, British Columbia, Western Canada, it's very similar to the USHL in terms of style, like where it's going to be a lot of speed, a lot of skill. I would say it's probably more, the USHL might be a little bit more well-rounded. But the BCHL, again, it's kind of very similar player. Offensive players will do well in the BCHL. Um, Again, speed, skill, that high end, high end talent. Those are the guys that do well in the BCHL. The BCHL, is what's what some would consider a skating league, because again, it's a lot of it's a lot of, I can't say it enough. It's a lot of speed. It's a lot of skill. Those are the guys that do very well in, in the BCHL. Um, Now, one thing to really know about the BCHL is they are obviously not part of Hockey Canada anymore. So if you play the way it's been in years past and the way it was last year, is if you play in a non-sanctioned league, meaning the BCHL, along with some others, and we can get, we'll touch on one of the others a little bit later. But if you play in the BCHL, if you play a game if you play a game after September 30th, you are no longer eligible for Hockey Canada for the rest of the year. So if you get cut, find something else to do, because you're not going to be able to play in Canada. And I believe they even did away with the appeal process. There used to be an appeal process, but I believe they've even done away with that now. So it's very important that, the BCHL, it's one of the best leagues out there, 100%. But again, if you're a bubble guy, it might not be the best bet for you, because if you're a bubble guy and then your bubble pops in October, well, now what are you going to do? Right. You can come to the United States. So you can do that. You can come to the United States. You could play in any of the sanctioned leagues in the United States. You could play in the NCDC, which that's probably going to be, if you're a guy that gets cut from the BC, mid-season, you're probably going to be looking towards NA, but NA is probably even going to be tough. Because again, they're very, like, the NA is a great league, and especially if you're a Canadian kid, now you're fighting the import rule in the NA, so it could be very, very tough. So you might be looking more towards NCDC. So if you're a guy that's on the bubble to be BC, just come up, make sure you know what your potential escape plan is if things don't go well, whether you get cut or maybe you don't like the team, maybe the team's just not a good fit, right? So that's just something to really, really keep in mind, is that, if you're going to go to the BCHL, you kind of want to be in a situation where your status is solidified, because if you play that game after September 30th, you're closing out a lot of options. So you want to, you kind of want to, do the best you can to make sure to know that, you're a lock in the league for the whole year. Now, the same thing holds true for upward movement. If you're a guy that's interested in going to the Western Hockey League, Major Junior in Canada, well, if you play in the BCHL past September 30th, you're ineligible, right? So if you're a guy that's looking to get that call up to Major Junior, BCHL, it's not going to be the best spot. You're going to want to look towards something else, because again, if you play a game in the BCHL past September 30th, you're going to be ineligible. And I know I've repeated that a lot, but it's so very important. For some reason, a lot of people are completely unaware of that rule. I run into it every year. People are like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." For some, and of course, a lot of teams probably don't advertise that, but yeah. So something you gotta know. Now let's head over to the North American Hockey League. So North American Hockey League, I mean, we talk about it quite a bit, but North American Hockey League, one of the two best tier 2 junior A leagues there are. What players do well in North American Hockey League? So again, it's going to be the skating. It's North American League is a skating league too. Definitely have to have a set of feet under you. If you can't skate, you can't play. And there's definitely good skill in the league. But the North American Hockey League is going to be a heavier league. It's going to be a heavier league than the BCHL. It's going to be a heavier league than the USHL. It's going to be older than the BCHL. It's going to be older than the USHL. So what players do well in the North American Hockey League? Typically, the North American Hockey League, it's more of I don't want to say a veterans league, but they definitely like their veterans. As we touched on I think it was last week, we touched on we did a whole episode on the North American Hockey League draft and all that. And, the number one place that they drafted from was Canadian Tier 2 Junior A. So they definitely like their veterans in that league, because again, there's no 20-year-old rule. So they could roll with, they could go 23, 20-year-olds across the board if they want to. So it's definitely, if you're a veteran guy, that's typically what they're looking for. Guys that could skate, guys that could play strong and heavy and tough. It's definitely not a goon league, but again, you got to be tough. You got to be able to play strong. You got to be able to play heavy. You got to play tough because it's an older man's league. So those are the guys that typically do well in the North American Hockey League, is the guys that are, kind of, a man playing with boys. So, again, it's important to, understand kind of where you're at, what you bring to the table, what your skill sets are, because all these different leagues, they're tools in a toolbox, right? And you're taking out I think I said it last week too, like you're taking out the tool that you need to help build what you're trying to build with your career, right? Like you can't take out the hammer to fix the window. So all these different leagues, they're tools in a toolbox. You pick the best one that's going to help you get to where you need to be and build what you're trying to build. And that's why you can't get caught up on the letters of the league, because it might just not be the best fit for you. There might be a much, much better option. Like there's guys that could probably, they might have a better chance of making a USHL team than making a North American Hockey League team, right? It happens. Again, it's, USHL clearly a better league, but it's a stylistic thing. It's it's the style of play. It's what they're looking for. It's how the league works. It's all that kind of stuff. So you can't get, hell bent on certain, on certain leagues. You got to be open to everything, and, you want to learn about everything and pick what works for you. So yeah, that's the North American Hockey League. So again, like those two, the BC and the NA, like they're the two best there are, but you could see, just based off of what we just spoke about, like you can see how one player might have a better opportunity in one league and another player might have a better opportunity in the other. Because they're different leagues. They're both at the top of the totem pole, but they're different leagues. Like, just, personally, and I think most people would probably, most, people in the industry would agree with me. I think if you're a top end skill guy, top end scorer, like if I'm looking for the best forward that I could possibly find, I'm looking in the BCHL over the NA, right? I think their top end is just better. It's proven to be better too, even at the NHL draft. Like I think, what was it, last year or the year before? Maybe in last year. I think Penticton V's in the BCHL. I think they had 2 players drafted in the NHL draft. One of them was in the first round, right? Like you're not seeing that in the North American Hockey League, right? So yeah, like, that's where, like, if I'm looking for the best forward that I could possibly find, probably, I'm looking in the BCHL. If I'm looking for the best 200-foot player that I could possibly find, I'm probably looking in the North American League for that, because of the style of play, the heavier league. The BCHL is definitely a little bit more geared towards the offense, right? So if I'm looking for the best well-rounded player that I could find, I'm probably, like best, or I shouldn't say well-rounded, but the best 200-foot player that I could find, I'm probably looking North American League. Goalies, if I'm looking for the best goalie I could find, I mean, North American Hockey League does a tremendous job with goalies, right? I really, really like the North American Hockey League for goalies. You even look at, Florida Panthers. Anthony Stolarz just won a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. He's a New Jersey kid here. I've known him for a long time. He played for Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi Ice Rays in North American Hockey League. He was drafted second round to the Philadelphia Flyers right out of the NA. When you see, like, Connor Hellebuck, like, he's another one. You also had, can never say the last name right, but the kid Adam from where was it, the Steel, that, he was out of the NA, right? It's like the NA does a tremendous job with goalies. So you could see, just based off of your position and based off of your playing style, there's different leagues that you might be, more successful in, or have a better opportunity in. So it really, really, again, like, there's so much that goes into this. You can't just pick a league and be like, oh, I want to play there no matter what, and I'm going to keep going to tryout camps until I play there, right? Like, you want the path of least resistance. So again, tools in a toolbox, use them. Let's move on. Let's work our way east in Canada from the. Actually, let's stay in the United States for a second. Let's let's go over to the NCDC. So there's a lot going on with the NCDC right now. Um, it's a good league. Is it the NA? Absolutely not. Right? There's people that say it's the same. It's not. It's just not, right? And again, it's different. You look at, it's almost like comparing apples to oranges, because again, you look at how the league is structured. It's a younger league, right? It would almost be unfair to compare them to the NA. It's a different tool in the same toolbox. So, but again, overall level of play, Division One output, all that, is it the same as the NA? No, it's not. It's a very good league, but it's behind the NA. It is, and the style of play, I would put that more in the same category as as like the BC or the USHL, in terms of it's a it's speed and skill. That's what they're going for in that league. It's probably, I want to say that they're capped at, I think 6 or 9 20-year-olds. It might be 9. But then I don't think goalies count towards the cap. So it's somewhere in there. And um, so again, it's a younger league, right? What players will do well in the NCDC? The guys that do well in the NCDC, again, your speed, your skill, maybe a guy that's, you know, um, it's typically guys that might have to put, like, they just don't have, maybe they don't have that size or that strength to play in the NA. So if you're right there in the NA, but you're lacking that physicality, like you're lacking that physical side, like you're just, maybe a little undersized and, need another year in the gym or whatnot, that's where I could see the NCDC, you doing well in the NCDC. And again, maybe you're a guy that goes to the end. Maybe that's your style of play, right? Maybe you go to the NCDC, you have a dynamite year, and then the next year you go to the USHL, right? And stick with that same style of play. And, so there's no rules with this stuff. Like, it's all about performance. You can, jump from one part of the map and end up at the other part of the map at any time. There's no, it's all about performance. If you could help somebody's hockey team win hockey games, they're going to be interested in you. They don't really care where you're coming from. So if you're coming out of the NCDC and you're proven, you've proved to a USHL team that you could help them win games, of course they're going to be interested in you. So, yeah. And, the NCDC, it's very interesting what's going on right now. But before we get into that, let's just, like the BCHL, the NCDC is considered a non-sanctioned league by Hockey Canada. So again, if everything holds the same as it was last year, if you play a game in the NCDC past September 30th, you are no longer eligible for Hockey Canada for the rest of the year. So just know that, because a lot of people, again, for some reason, a lot of people don't know that. And it's extremely important, because you're wiping out a ton of opportunity. So you better be sure that that's where you want to be. And you better be sure that you have, all your bases covered, because you will close out a lot of doors. And, again, I'm not saying not to play in the league. I'm just saying, it's a very good league, just like the BCHL, BCHL is a phenomenal league. So I'm not saying don't play in those leagues. I'm just saying, know your shit. Make sure you have a plan, make sure you have an escape plan, the what ifs. So yeah. And that's for the whole USPHL too. So if anybody's, also finding themselves talking to tier 3 teams, same thing for USPHL Premier, USPHL Elite. You play a game in those leagues past September 30th, you're ineligible for Hockey Canada for the rest of the year. You can't take call-ups. So yeah, now obviously there's a lot going on with the, with the NCDC, and I don't want to get too much into that. I want to stay on topic here tonight. But just something for everybody to know, from everything I've heard, the New England division of the NCDC will be pay to play next year. So that's important, because it's always been free in years past. The Western division, that Mountain division, I don't know if they call it Western or Mountain, but that division, and then the Atlantic division, those will be, from everything I'm hearing, those will stay free this year. But the New England division, I'm hearing, is charging tuition for this upcoming year. So that's a very important, big change that's coming into the league for this year. And again, coming into part of the league for this year. So again, something you guys definitely need to know, something you need to check out, be aware of, and all that. So let's does anybody have any questions? It's been quiet so far, but I know I've been rambling on here with the information, but if anybody has any questions or anything like that, again, just throw them in the comments. For anybody that wasn't here in the beginning, it's completely interactive. If you guys find this stuff helpful, just hit the like button, hit the thumbs up. Let me know what you guys like. Let me know what you guys are finding useful, not useful. Um, if you're be sure to subscribe on YouTube. And yeah, so let's head back to Western Canada now. So we're gonna go over to the Alberta Junior Hockey League. So the Alberta Junior Hockey League, this league is going to be interesting for next year. So they, like I said, they lost, I think it was 5 of their top teams. They lost to the BCHL mid-season last year, which is pretty crazy, but just with everybody making their own rules these days with the, like with the, with junior hockey and everybody's their own governing body, it's really, really become the, the Wild West. And yeah, so there's like 5 teams that jump ship in the middle of the season and joined a new league. Never thought I would say that, but yeah, so the Alberta Junior Hockey League, it's this year again because of what happened last year. I don't see it being the powerhouse that it always has been. I always had the Alberta League as 1B behind the BCHL in Canada. So the BC and the AJ were always the 2 best tier 2 junior A leagues in Canada. And one of the difference being was, again, stylistically. So the BCHL, like I was saying before, was your high end skill. The Alberta League, they had very, very good skill, but it was definitely a heavier, tougher league, right? Like if I had a top end stay at home defenseman that was, a mean SOB, he might have done better in the Alberta League because that fit his style of play more. Maybe his feet were a little behind. That like we're in the BCHL, the feet might get exposed more, like I was saying. So again, like those 2 leagues, they were neck and neck. They were, the 2 best in Canada. The stylistically, that's where you could see, okay, this one fit these types of players better. This one might fit these types of players better. So this year, what kind of players will do well in the Alberta League? The style is going to be the same. It's still going to be a heavier league. It's going to, just kind of like your farm boy, heavy, strong, again, very, very skilled. I don't think it's, again, I don't think it's going to be as high end as it has been in years past, but we'll see. I could be wrong, but I don't think it will. But yeah, so typically those are the guys that'll do well in the Alberta League, is the guys that play that heavy, that heavy style play. They finish checks. They're hard to play against. They're physical. And, when I say physical, I don't necessarily mean that you have to be blowing people up center ice, right? Like, I mean, like the bumps, the rubs, that kind of stuff. Like you and I going to the corner for the puck. Are you touching me the whole time? Like, are you making me work? Like, like the bumps and the rubs and that kind of stuff, like, right. Like that physicality, like you're not going around me. Like we're both fighting for the same ice and, shoulders touching, bodies touching, somebody's falling down. Like that's what I mean about physicality, like really, really, really battling for your ice and your real estate and that kind of stuff. So yeah, like those are the guys that I see, typically do well in the Alberta League. And then as we move east, so we have the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League and a Manitoba Junior Hockey League. Those 2, I would say, are going to be similar to the Alberta League, but they've always just been, a half a click behind in years past, because again, the Alberta League, has always been super, super strong. So the MJ and the SJ, very, very good leagues. I think that gap might close. I think that gap's going to close a bit this year between them and the Alberta League. But again, similar style in that it's a, it's a heavy style. It's they make you work. They're strong. They play hard. They play physical. They make you work. So again, so those are the, the types of players that typically do well in the SJ, in the MJ. To put it into comparison, I'd say it's probably, if you're an American and you were going through the NA circuit, I would say those are your guys that maybe just missed the NA, like just missed, or they played like, maybe they played 10 games in the NA and then got cut, a month into the season. Like those are probably the types of guys that are going to the MJ, going to the SJ, probably going to the, again, we'll see what happens with Alberta, but same thing. Probably those are the types of guys that are going to, Alberta. And yeah, and guys, like they're tremendous leagues. They're like guys go Division 1 out of them. Guys like there was a kid that got drafted to the NHL last year out of the Manitoba League. So, again, like it kind of goes back to what I was saying. I mean, or it does go back to what I was saying that, they're tools in a toolbox, right? Like you might, maybe, maybe one of those top of the totem pole leagues, maybe it's not what's best for you. Maybe something like this is what's best for you, right? And you could still go Division 1. You could still go, get drafted to the NHL. You won't be the first guy to do it, right? It's happened. So you want to, so again, like you just want to use all this stuff. You want to educate yourself and you want to know what's out there and learn how to use it accordingly, to help you, through, through your journey. Because like, look, like you take that kid last year that was drafted to the NHL out of Manitoba. I mean, sure, there was like leagues of players that quote unquote looked down on that kid, right? Like, oh, poor son of a bitch. He had to play over there. He couldn't play at our high level league, like at our top of the totem pole. But guess what? Every kid, for the most part, at those higher levels would trade places with that kid, right? Because it worked for him. He got drafted to the NHL, right? Most guys that at the beginning of the year that were making fun of him, they'd all trade places with him. So again, do what works for you. So just reading some notes here, but yeah, and the other major, so again, just stylistically, like you'll see those Western Canada, that's kind of like that Western Canadian style play, right? It's going to be heavier. Those three leagues are very similar, in terms of style play. And the other, so again, what player additionally would do well? Guy that might be, trying to work his way up towards the Western Hockey League, the major junior, right? Like I told you earlier, the BCHL guys after September 30th, they're not eligible. So if you're a guy that's trying to get that call up to major junior, you're trying to work your way up to the Western Hockey League, to major junior, the going to the AJ, the SJ, or the MJ, it could be a tremendous move because you'll be playing in their backyard. Same thing if you're an American and major junior is really, really the avenue you want to be going to. Maybe you went to a major junior camp and it didn't work out. And now you have the option to play in Manitoba or the NA, but you're like dead set on, you want to pursue major junior. You're better off in the MJ, right? Like there's a lot of opportunity there. So those are the types of players that, maybe you want to utilize those leagues. Again, utilize what's going to work for you. Now moving east, we're going to get into Ontario now. So moving east, we have the SIJHL, which is the Superior International Junior Hockey League, and we have the NOJHL, which is the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League. These two leagues are they might be the most underutilized junior leagues there are. They're definitely the bottom of the totem pole for Tier 2 Junior A, right? And I've sent a lot of players to those leagues, and but they're just straight up, they're the bottom of the totem pole. But they're launching pads, and that's what I've used them for over the years. Is guys that if you go to one of those two leagues and you do really well, you solidify your status as a legitimate Tier 2 Junior A player. And then the idea is to launch yourself to one of the higher level leagues the following year, or even mid-season. If you go there and you're average at best or you're subpar, it's probably where you're going to stay. But if you're average, why would you move up? Right? That's the thing you have to remember, right? Like nobody's looking for average, right? Average isn't going to cut it. But they are, at the end of the day, are they at the bottom of the totem pole? Sure. Yes, they are. But they're still Tier 2 Junior A leagues. And they still operate according to the bylaws of Tier 2 Junior A. There's still the standards there of Tier 2 Junior A. So the way you're treated, everything you go through on a daily basis, the way everything, the structure, all that kind of stuff, it's still Tier 2 Junior A, right? You're in that ecosystem of Tier 2 Junior A. You're playing for the same championship as, the rest of the CJHL at the end of the year. And you get more respect from a lot of the, from maybe guys like the BCHL or the NAHL, because you're already playing Tier 2 Junior A, right? You get more respect coming from there than you do Tier 3, right? And again, we're talking in a lot of generalities right now because, are there, because the argument that some people make, oh, well, there are certain Tier 3 teams that do a great job. Yeah, of course, right? There's overlap everywhere. There's certain Tier 3 teams that might do a better job than some of the Tier 2. There's Tier 2 teams that, do a better job in the, than a lot of the, probably than a lot of, some of the Tier 1. Again, like I talked about Penticton earlier, look at Penticton, right? What they're doing is, there's probably major junior teams that aren't doing that, right? There's probably USHL teams that might not be doing that. So of course there's overlap, but so those leagues, I call them make me or break me leagues. And here's the nice thing too. Like, do you have to pay to play in them? For the most part, yeah. But they're not $12,000 US. It's like peanuts compared to that. So financially, like it offers a lot of opportunity financially too. So those two leagues, they're make me or break me leagues. Stylistically, they're more, now that we're getting into Ontario on a whole plays more of like that, probably more of like an NHL style of play. So stylistically, they're going to be a little more like that. They're not going to be as heavy as, as the Western Canadian leagues. And like I said, they're not going to be as strong. They're like entry level leagues or make me or break me leagues. And out of the two, the NOJ is definitely the stronger of the two leagues. Of years back, I would say they were pretty close, but and the NOJ may have always been a little bit stronger, but now I think it's noticeable that the NOJ is the better of the of the two leagues. So guys that'll do well there, or guys that again, they're just they're just not at that BCHL or that top end of the spectrum yet, right? They need a year to grow. Maybe they're a second year U18 player, and you go play there instead of playing U18 because it might be a hell of a lot cheaper, and you're going to be playing against older guys. So instead of you being the oldest guy on the rink every night and playing against little kids, well, now you're going to go here, you're going to play against older guys, you're going to start to get that experience, and then the idea is to do well. And then maybe next year you move over to a league like, let's say, the North American Hockey League. Like I was saying, they want the veterans, they want that year of experience, they want the toughness, right? You're going to get tougher playing against Tier 2 Junior A competition. You're going to get tougher doing that than you are playing against a bunch of 17-year-olds that are younger than you, playing short games and this and that. So those are the kinds of players that should really utilize those leagues, or guys that might not be getting playing time in some of the higher level leagues. Like, again, you got to play. If you're not going to play, what are you doing? So those are the kinds of guys that should, that I would say should utilize those leagues. And like those are the kinds of guys that do well in them, guys that are play more of like that well-rounded style, not a guy that's all offense, not a guy, like they're probably smarter leagues than, like if we compared them to some of the, like down here in the US, like if we compared them to some of the, Tier 3 and stuff, like, again, like it's just different. It's Tier 2, right? The guys still have that Tier 2 mentality. Like they're playing the game at the, at the Tier 2 level. So yeah, those are the kinds of guys that I think, should definitely give those leagues a hard look this year. And those are the kinds of guys that I think can do well in those leagues. Just guys that are hungry and looking to break in and learn the ropes of junior hockey, learn the ropes at Tier 2 Junior A, and learn how to carry yourself, learn how to travel, learn how to practice, learn, again, just get that experience and challenge yourself. And yeah, like those are the guys that I think are a good fit there, and the guys that could do well there. Um, so now if we move over, keep going east here in Ontario. Now we're going to run into the Ontario Junior Hockey League. And so the Ontario Junior Hockey League, it's definitely changed over the years. Once that league went pay to play, I really do think it got compromised a bit, because again, like once you bring the money into it, now you're not recruiting the best players that you could find. You're recruiting the best players that you could find that can pay. Right. So and it's probably not every team. I mean, there's probably, just like everywhere else, there's probably tons of players playing for free, tons of players playing on discount. Um, but the OJHL, it's a good league. Stylistically, it's always been more that pro style, NHL style play, just well-rounded, smart players, kind of work smarter, not harder type thing. And so yeah, I mean, I think, stylistically, those are the guys that do well there, like guys that have a head on their shoulders and can think the game, that aren't robotic. Like I know a lot of the US leagues, it's very like robotic, like where it's just north, south, north, south, north, south, get it, dump it, chase it, north, north, south, right? Like where that Ontario style, it's more like, okay, like, it's like, all right, I'm going to step out. I'm going to draw a guy into me. I'm going to take my time. And once he bites, now I'm going to throw this pass, like this crazy pass. And, so it's more like kind of like let the puck do the work, like that kind of stuff. And, again, just very well rounded. They've, guys get drafted to the NHL, guys go Division 1, everything you could ever ask for. So it's definitely, it's a very good league. And, and just like the other Ontario leagues, and we're going to get into the CCHL here in a minute, but just like the other Ontario leagues, obviously there's lots of opportunity for the OHL, and that goes for the NOJHL, that goes for the SIJHL, it goes for the OJHL, and it goes for the CCHL that we're about to get into here too. So if you're a guy that, is very driven to getting to the OHL, or maybe you played a couple games in the OHL and you don't have your eligibility anymore, and you're trying to work your way back in, or maybe you went to OHL camp, got cut, and you want to try to get in, again, those Ontario leagues, it's probably your best bet if you are pursuing the OHL. So those are the kinds of guys that, again, you want to look towards those leagues, because that's going to help you navigate and help you be on a track for what you're trying to do. Any questions so far? I'm going to check the Discord real quick if anybody's been posting anything in there. I haven't done it yet this episode, so just bear with me here for a second. I'm just checking it now. But again, if anybody has any questions, just throw it up. Yeah, and we'll keep moving along here. Wrong channel. Okay. Yeah. So all right. Yeah. So we're at the OJHL. So that's, again, that's kind of, the OJ in a nutshell, like what kinds of guys do well. I'd say that I mean, honestly, like the top end of that league, a lot of those guys could probably play in the USHL. It's a very good league. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, just because we're talking about these leagues that are quote unquote behind the top of the totem pole, I mean, in the NA and the BCHL, there's still some really, really good players there that, it's guys that could play in the USHL, no problem. Guys that could play in the BC or the NA, no problem. Maybe they want to be closer to home. Maybe the team won't trade them. BC, you don't need to trade anymore, but, so it really, like, don't kid yourself. Like, just because we're saying that these leagues are quote unquote behind, I mean, there's some damn good teams there, and some damn good players and guys that would, tear apart the NA. Just like there's guys in the NA that would tear apart the OJ. So it's, that's the biggest thing to remember, is that, all these leagues are, the top end of everything is very, very good. So just because, again, can't stress it enough, just because we're saying it's quote unquote behind doesn't mean that, if you're behind the NA or behind the BCHL, doesn't mean that you're a lock for those leagues, especially if you're an American, right? Because again, like if you're going to play in one of these Canadian leagues, one of the CJHL leagues as an American, you have to be one of 6 imports, right? So for you, it's not a 25-man roster or whatever it is. For you, it's a 6-man roster, right? So you got to be one of the best 6 that they could find. So for as an American going up there, it's even harder. So whatever advantage you may have had because the league is a little bit weaker, well, you just lost that advantage a lot of times because you have to be at the top end of it, right? You have to be, again, one of the 6 best that they could find. So yeah, it's just very, very important to remember and to know. Now moving over to CCHL. So the CCHL, that's the last league in Ontario. It's going to be that's the Ottawa League. It's going to be in Eastern Ontario, and very, very good league. Now the CCHL is going to probably be, I would say, it's going to be heavier than the OJ. Like they're going to play a heavier style play. Probably still different than the Manitoba League, but it's going to be, it's going to be a heavier, more physical, probably tougher game. They probably, like where I said the OJ, it's, probably very, very smart hockey. The CCHL, it's still smart, but maybe not as smart. Maybe it gets to be not, a little bit more, meat and potatoes type of thing, like where they're, I said that, OJ, a lot of times it could be like kind of like working smart, not hard, where the CC kind of gets into that, working hard. Again, just different. Not that it's, again, like it's a very good league. I like the, both of them are very, very, good leagues. I'd say they're comparable. It's, just again, what to expect as a player going up there and what kind of players do well there. It's probably going to be a little bit of a heavier, more physical league than the OJ. So if you're deciding between the 2 leagues and you're a guy that struggles in the physicality department, pick the OJ. Don't pick the CCHL. Pick the OJ, right? If you're a guy that maybe, maybe the physicality is where your strength is, that's what you dominate in, that's what you're really good at, and maybe you lack some of the, some of the other hockey sense or whatnot, and you're going to go play in either the OJ or the CC, well, in that case, pick the CC, go play there. Again, that league, like the OJ, I think has been for sure compromised ever since they started, charging to play. I think the quality of the league definitely isn't what it used to be. It used to, years and years and years ago, I think we used to say to like the big 4 were like the BC, the AJ, the CC, and the OJ. Now it's kind of like the BC's the last man standing, and the AJ was until they lost their top team, those teams to the BCHL. But again, we'll see what happens with the AJ. I don't think it's going to be the same, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I mean, the OJ and the CCHL, I don't think they are what they were, but your top teams, especially in the OJ, I think your top teams are still, pretty dynamite. So yeah, that's what to, expect with those leagues. And that's the types of players that I think do well in those leagues. And I think that, if you can accurately identify what you are and what you bring to the table, I think that, again, like kind of using this to, picking the right league, I think, obviously will do you wonders. So, yeah, so that's Ontario. That's the CCHL. So now there's 2 leagues left in Canada. And these are probably the 2 most different leagues in Canada, I would say. Especially the second one that we're going to get into. But so we'll start with the Maritime League. So the Maritime League, it's a good league, right? It's a good league. I would say could be more on the physicality side. Like I don't think it's as heavy as the Western Canada, but they kind of play that similar style. Like it's not goon hockey. Like it's not goon hockey, but like they're finishing checks, they're giving you some whacks, they're it's definitely a feeding system as well for the Quebec Major Junior League, like the Quebec Major Junior League or the Quebec Maritime League that that it's called now. There's definitely, a lot of up and down movement between the Maritime League and that league. I think the Maritime League also does a, pretty good job with Canadian University. They probably don't do a ton with NCAA. Um, probably don't do a ton with NCAA. I think just because there's a lot of, I think it runs into that thing too, like where a lot of the guys, don't want to go NCAA. Like they're very focused on major junior, and there's a lot of guys that don't have NCAA eligibility because they've played major junior. So it just kind of gets to be, for the NCAA coaches, it's probably not worth a ton of time and money flying up there and going to watch it, just because the player pool of guys that are eligible and want to come, it's a lot smaller than in many of the other leagues. So it's probably not, the best, for a guy that's, hell bent on NCAA. I think there's better options out there. If you're a guy that's hell bent on, you know, major junior in Quebec, and in the Maritimes, I think it's a great option. I think they do a good job at what they do. I think they definitely work closely with the major junior up there. And, there's a lot of opportunity. And, if that's the route you're on, that's the path you're on, that's a great choice. I mean, really, why would you play anywhere else, right? Like if you're, especially if you're a guy that like, played a couple games in the Quebec Major Junior League, or, maybe you went to camp in the Quebec Major Junior League and you're trying to get called up and, like that, again, like you're set, that's the path that you're set on. You want to try to go major junior. Yeah. The Maritime League is a tremendous, it's a tremendous tool for that. And there's, yeah, I mean, there's some teams up there that they do a pretty good job. And, yeah, so I mean, that's kind of, those are the guys that I think, it'd be a smart choice to go to the Maritimes. I think those are the guys that, um, yeah, I mean, or even guys that are maybe looking to go pro after junior, maybe guys that, maybe they're focused on the lower levels of minor league pro. Maybe they're like, maybe just school's not for you, right? Like those guys could do well in the Maritimes. And same thing, those guys, that group of player, I'd probably say for the most part, you stick to Canada. Like the US is very, very focused on NCAA. If you're a guy that for whatever reason, whether it's academic, financial, or just no interest in, for whatever reason, you're not like, you have zero interest in going NCAA, I would definitely pick one of the Canadian leagues, because they're going to be heavier. They're going to be, more of a little bit more of a man's game, a little bit more to that pro style. Definitely more the pro style. And, again, it's just, the US leagues are definitely built and geared towards NCAA, right? That's the goal. So, and they're not shy about that. They make that known, and they're tremendous at doing it, right? So you want to play in a spot that's going to, that what they're trying to do, you want to play in a spot that, their goals align with your goals. Again, why would you not? So, yeah, I mean, so that's a Maritime League. And then the last league that we're going to get into here is the Quebec Junior AAA Hockey League, which most people probably don't even know it exists. It's up in Quebec, obviously, and it's called the Quebec Junior AAA, but that's their tier 2 junior A. So in Quebec, they do things different. The junior AAA is their junior A, the junior AA is their junior B, the junior A is their junior C. So, yeah, so that's how they do it. Our junior B and junior C, we call, tier 3. So yeah, the Quebec Junior AAA Hockey League, that league, um, you know, it's very much geared towards major junior. It's going to be very offensive. Like, and when I say major junior, it's going to be geared towards the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League, the Quebec Major Junior League. It's a very, it's very offensive league. Like you'll see, scores of 8-6 and that kind of stuff. It's definitely geared towards offense. I don't think they're really doing, they probably get, the odd NCAA Division III guy, lots of major junior movement, like I said. So if you're a guy that is, again, very much looking to go to, to major junior in Quebec or in the Maritimes, those two leagues are a tremendous option. And again, like for most guys, if they're picking one of those two leagues, majority of the guys are going to go play in the Maritimes because the Quebec League, again, like it's, pretty much, it might actually be all French speaking. So for a guy that's billeting, that speaks English and doesn't speak French, you're probably going to, you know, stick to the Maritime League. The Quebec League, it's probably a lot of guys from Quebec. And yeah, again, guys that are looking to try to play major junior, or maybe go to some type of senior league in Quebec when it's all said and done, or maybe go to Canadian University. There's probably not too many guys that it makes sense for them to, move from Western Canada to Quebec to play in that league, or guys from the United States to move there and play in that league. Unless like I said, unless your goals are, major junior, senior league, Canadian University. But yeah, and then one thing that I found too is that the Quebec League and the Maritime League, they will spend money. Like they'll spend, a good amount of money on players and on stuff. Like they may even do, school packages and stuff. Like I had a player one year that got his school paid for from the Maritime League, which, it's not really, like typically that's happening in major junior, but, like I had a team, they paid for a kid's school out of the Maritime League. So, they'll spend money, and a lot of these leagues will spend money, but these guys, the one thing that comes with that territory is I've always, and this is just my personal experience, I've always found that it could sometimes be harder to get a guy out of Quebec or the Maritime League that they want when they go to do a trade with another CJHL team. The asking price is usually very high because they're used to spending money. So when they go to trade the player, they're expecting everybody else to spend money too. They're expecting everybody to be on the same page. And, they might spend more money than a lot of other teams. And, I think it's, again, just that major junior mentality, that pro mentality of, hey, it's just all business and this is what we think this player is worth. And, so give us what we think he's worth or go pound sand. So, I find it to be a little bit more challenging sometimes getting players out of those leagues if they want to move over to a different league. So that's something to keep in mind too, because once you sign, and, for CJHL, once you sign, like that's it. They have your rights for years to come. So again, that's, something very, very important to take into consideration. So, but yeah, guys, so that's the 13 junior A leagues. 13 junior A leagues, 12 tier 2, one, and then the USHL tier 1. And yeah, so yeah, if anybody has any questions, throw them up now. Because we're gonna call it here. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your experience is. Let me know what you're trying to do. I mean, even if you're watching this video, later on demand, throw up a comment. Let me know where where you play, where you're coming from. Be sure to, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up. Yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you found this helpful. Let me know where you're going for tryouts, all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out tonight. Thanks for spending the time. And yeah, and then I got to see what's going on next week. So next week is 4th of July, and I know in Canada they have Canada Day as well, on the 1st. So next week might be a little wonky, but I'll post somewhere. If you're, just hit up Swan Hockey on Instagram. Again, guys, I can't stress enough, join the Discord. And we also have our Junior Hockey by Swan Hockey Facebook group. So join the group, and and then I'll see what's going on for next week. If either way, everybody have a happy Canada Day, happy 4th of July, and and we'll see what's going on. I think it's July 18th. Cam Robichaux, the head coach of the New Hampshire Mountain Kings North American Hockey League, he's going to be on here with us. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, no, sounds great, everybody. Again, check out swanhockey.com. We also have a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week live stream right here on YouTube that'll, it shows everything that's currently going on with Swan Hockey, what's in the, coming, what's coming, in the pipeline in the works with Swan Hockey. Again, a lot of cool stuff. The, merch drop should be happening soon. Like the shirts on it, and a lot of our merch is verifiable on the blockchain, which is really cool because we're getting into a lot of really cool Web3 stuff. And when I scanned the first jersey for the pre-draft showcase, when I scanned the first jersey, that was actually the first, forget hockey, that was the first sports jersey ever verified on the blockchain through Verify. So very happy to be doing it first. And yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff coming, guys. So just, yeah, stay connected. Instagram, swanhockey.com, Discord, Facebook. Yeah. And I will see you guys soon. All right. Everybody have a great night. See ya.